We use HDI. We're beginning to use MPI, and the granularity of the data, the periodicity of the data, becomes frequent. It will be used, and this is going to be exceptionally important to also depoliticize political allocations, right? So through this formula. The third is on the conceptual, right? So capability approach used to be philosophical, sort of vague, but now becoming highly relevant to the kind of crises and issues we're dealing with. Planetary stress, technological upheavals, societal polarization, economic stagnation, geopolitical rivalries, and all that. So we're now talking about agency at the individual level, at the societal level, and even national and global levels, right? So in 1776, Sen's favorite example was capability to appear in public without shame. This is Adam Smith's language. Capability to appear in public without shame. Very much a poverty-driven discourse. But now, capability to affiliate, social capital, social capabilities are very much ideas that need to be borrowed to address the kind of challenges that we are in, right? So both on the concept, on the measure and policy applicability, I think we've evolved, matured, wide acceptance, but we do need to now adapt also, right? So the indicators move from quantity to quality. This overwhelming focus on the deprived, where do the poor live? I think Sita Prabhu mentioned it on the first day. It's middle class in mega cities that is becoming as the new sovereign units. So this will need us to refashion our discourse. More people living in middle income countries, and concepts of vulnerability and inequality now perhaps more important than the concept of poverty, absolute poverty. And on the how, we used to focus a lot on this old socialist sort of redistribution kind of policies, but now, public provisioning of basic services is becoming a new science of delivery. And part of that story, you see it right here in India, unique ID, real-time data collection, co-payments, PPP, and all that. So Brazil, India, China, so from this classical tax and spend kind of pro-HD policies, we are evolving here as well. Now, looking to the future, I think the word polycrisis has been mentioned. So the test of the relevance or the salience of HD as a paradigm will rest on how well we do in answering the new issues, right? So on economic stagnation and jobless recovery, HDR 94 talked about human insecurity, 2020 compact and all that, but these things are changing. Tax bases are weakening. The issue of indebtedness in the 80s was very different, which gave rise to the HD paradigm. But you look at Sri Lanka, you look at Pakistan, you look at Lao PDR, that HD framework should answer those new challenges in a new guise, right? On demographic and technological disruption, HD did a good job in talking about the care economy in a globalized world, but what about gig economy with grandparents, right? This is a new sort of aging society. How will we address that? Routine tasks that are codifiable will go. Demand will increase for high order cognitive skills. So what does that mean for schooling, conventional sort of educational parameters? Role of big tech, etc. will come later. On planetary, climate action needs secure long-term financing, but private incentives are skewed towards short-term capital gains. How are we going to fix this from an HD framework? Big issue on the social polarization and fragmentation, envisioning social protection, right? And finally, the geopolitical fault lines as well. This involves exercise of agency at the national and global level. HDR 2013, that I was part of, took a very positive view of the rise of the South, India, China, Brazil, South Africa, etc. But now with US, China, even India, China contestations, how will this constrain policy choices for lagging economies from the lens of finance, technology adoption, mobility, market opportunities? How will we be able to solve collective action problems like climate, trade, safe use of technologies? And finally, the likelihood of active conflict itself, disrupt, right? So AT&T was broken up, Standard Oil was broken up from the antitrust perspective. Now, the argument these days is, is their size that is of public value. Therefore, you can't really do that. You can't have 50 Amazons or 100 Ubers, because then you lose that whole advantage on saving on search cost, etc. Kaushik Basu has made this point, similar point as well. So the challenge, therefore, is to think of novel regulations to prevent exorbitant corporate profit accruing to just a handful of individuals, and rather go towards creative modes of distributed shareholding That's been the argument. Now, do you think this is possible from the perspective of equity, human development, consumer welfare? So new mode of regulation to tame the big giants without breaking them up and losing the public value that they have